Good morning. Today is Wednesday, April 2nd, and this is Devotions from St. Paul Evangelical Lutheran Church in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. I'm going to take a passage today from Luke's Gospel, and it's a familiar passage of feeding the 5,000. So there's a couple of things I'd like to highlight in this, and this story comes from the 9th chapter of Luke's Gospel. On their return, the apostles told Jesus all they had done. He took them with him and withdrew privately to a city called Bethsaida. When the crowds found out about it, they followed him, and he welcomed them, and he spoke to them about the kingdom of God, and he healed those who needed to be cured. As the day was drawing to a close, the 12 came to him and said, "Send away the crowd, so that they may go into the surrounding villages and countryside to lodge and get provisions for themselves, for we are in a deserted place." But he said to them, "You give them something to eat." The disciples said, "We have no more than 5 loaves and 2 fish, unless we are to go and buy food for all these people, for there are about 5,000 men. And he said to his disciples, "Make them sit down in groups of 50. So they did that and made them sit down. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven and blessed the loaves and the 2 fish, and he broke them and he gave them to the disciples and set them before the crowd. They all ate and were filled. What was left over was gathered up, 12 baskets of broken pieces." This is one of those miracles that they teach kids early on in their Christian education, because it's startling. It's something that doesn't happen very often. But I want you to go back to the first line where it says that the disciples returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done. Jesus had sent his disciples out to preach the kingdom of God and to cure on their own without Jesus being there. Now, he had charged them, told them that they would have that ability, and they went out and they did that. And from my reading of this, they came back and were quite excited because they were able to do the things that Jesus had told them to do, preach and cure. So then Jesus took them aside and they were talking about their time, and the crowds found them. And as they were, Jesus welcomed the crowds and started to teach them. And he did the same things that he had told his disciples to do. He preached about the kingdom of God, and he cured those that needed to be cured. And from my reading, he took most of the day to do it, because it says they were getting towards evening, and the disciples came to Jesus and says, "Send the folks away so they can find something to eat." And now Jesus challenges his disciples again. He says, "You give them something to eat." But see, when Jesus sent them out to preach and to cure, he had told them that they would have that ability. And he had not said the same thing when he said, "You give them something to eat." And so they did not have the confidence to be able to feed the crowd with the means that they had on hand. So Jesus did it. He said, "Make them sit down in groups." He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. He prayed, he blessed them, and he had the disciples distribute to all those people. And he said there were 5,000 men, so there were probably a lot more than that when you count women and children. And when they were all done, they had 12 baskets left over. Jesus' mission is to speak, to preach about the kingdom of God. And he used the curing and he used miracles like feeding the 5,000 to say, I am telling you these stories, but I have the power to affect things. I think, in addition, Jesus is also telling the people of that time and us too, he's not only concerned with our spiritual well being, though I do believe that is his primary focus and his mission, but he's also concerned about physical needs. And he shows that by feeding this whole crowd after he had been preaching to them and curing them all day long. Jesus has the ability to affect more than just the people as he preaches. He has the ability to affect their physical well being, curing them and feeding them. And that's true today. We probably are a lot like the disciples. We have different talents, some of which we probably think were God given. And just like the disciples, those things seem to us to be things that we can do for Jesus more easily than those that come up that we don't seem to have particular talents. The disciples preached and they cured because Jesus had charged them, but they had trouble when it came to feeding that multitude of people. Jesus showed us that even physical things can be taken care of. And as far as we are concerned, I think what that means is, yes, we each have different talents, and that should be our primary focus when we do our service. But there are going to be times when we are stretched, when we are challenged to do things that might be a little beyond what we normally consider to be our individual talents. Jesus challenged the disciples, and then he supported them by taking up the challenge himself. But he has given us the same challenge to feed his sheep, to take care of his people. This is a good story. This is a story that tells about Jesus' power. This is a story we tell children. But this is also a story for each of us because it shows that not only is God and Jesus after our spiritual well-being, they're thinking of our physical well-being as well. I hope you read these stories, this one from the 9th chapter of Luke's Gospel. It's inspiring, it's powerful, and I hope it will tell you we have a place in service to Jesus. Thank you.